The 10inaRow Celtic Show is a Hail Hail Media production featuring Paul Larkin and Graham Wilson, so it may contain sweary words and adult situations may be discussed. If you're in the company of underage Tims, turn off the show now and listen back later. Hail Hail, and keep the faith. Welcome to the 10inaRow Celtic Show, the 6th installment. My name is Graham Wilson, and joining me as always is the green and white writer, Mr. Paul Larkin. Good evening, Paul.
Hello, dummy.
Hello, dummy.
Oh, look, he talks.
Oh, he's sitting right in the front row. Look at you with your red shirt on.
Hello, dummy.
Hello, dummy.
Hello, Don.
So, Paul, we're back for another installment with loads of well wishes and positive feedback, and it's all good. Absolutely, this is something that I'm not accustomed to. You're probably more familiar with than me, but for the listeners, let's give them a rundown on the format. It's 10 in a row, so there's 10 topics, which we will have 5 minutes total to debate, discuss, throw around. A lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous. And at the end of the 5-minute period, we will have a klaxon.
That's it.
That's the klaxon. That means we need to move on to the next topic, Paul.
And I know that you threw a disclaimer in there at the start, Graham. I'd like to throw my own disclaimer in there to the listeners. I don't know what the topics are tonight. Normally we discuss them, pull them apart, etc. I don't know what any of them are. So if 10 of them are all God bless America, Jurgen is God, then I'm apologising now.
Well, we'll just see about all that.
Yes, I await with trepidation.
I had a feeling you were going to take the piss out of me for this. So, first, you don't pass up an opportunity to take the piss out of me.
How dare you?
You got to.
I would never take the piss out of you. I would take the piss out of people who say they're going to see their son and have 3 people DM me saying, I didn't know Graham had become a dad. I was like, that's because he hasn't.
Listen, this is all new to me. I'm excited about it, and
understandable.
Yes, and given the dialogue that we had last week, where you basically discouraged me from talking about my son's impending arrival, I'm gonna have some fun with this. So you shouldn't be surprised at all that I'm talking about it in any way. We need guidelines, I guess. Just tell me what is and is not acceptable. I mean, listen. They have the 3D pictures of the kids now. I mean, it looks like a human being.
Exactly. And so there's your clue. Every time you see the picture, just think, what would it like to reach to look at someone's 300 vacation pictures?
Wilson, you fucking cunt.
Thank you. First topic, Paul. What's been the hardest part of the Asterisk Gears project?
Fuck's sake! Nice one, thank you. The hardest part has probably been, I would say, just trying to explain the story to people. When I had the story kind of, there was many tactics deployed to me to get the story around my head, and it took me about 3 months. And so, because I've kind of enriched myself for this, and I've kind of enraptured my whole body around it all the time, I often find myself in conversation with people who will tell me this is what happened, and I'll be like, it really wasn't it. This is what happened, and they'll kind of look at me and say, well, how do you know? I say, well, because I've kind of looked into this and stuff. And I always take that on the basis that people didn't know anything that I've ever done and all that kind of thing. But there are occasions where, I think I mentioned this on a show one time. I actually had a nine message DM for someone who told me that I had to listen to this guy on this podcast who was revealing this story, and I was like, it's me, you stupid cunt. And he was like, oh, I didn't actually realise that. So the hardest part was definitely the story, because there's so many factions, as you said before, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, not a lot of whatevers. And therefore, that's why 3 mediums were kind of chosen. First with books, second with audiobooks, and now with a movie. And hopefully the movie will be the simplest version of the story that we can possibly do, Graham. We're not going for the Great Gatsby with 10 layers of stuff. It's like, this is what happened. Here's the documents. Here's the guys involved. What do you think?
Well, and I think that it's going to be the type of medium where people are going to actually see you. So that it's very revealing from that perspective. You're not going to have, the type of situation where people are going to mistake you for some guy on a podcast, which will be a relief, I'm sure.
And also with that, where anybody who's written a book, or even yourself writing articles and whatever, you do not have the ability. You want to have the ability to grab somebody by the lapels and shake it out them and say, this is what I'm trying to say here. In the documentary, you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
You could actually talk to the camera and say, this is what this means.
Right.
And I've had to, I see stuff on Twitter every single day where there's so much disinformation and strands that people run away over and focus on. And it's like, I feel like saying, I don't want to dishearten people, but it's like I said, you're so far off the track, it's unbelievable. You know what I mean?
Probably because they pick up on one individual piece of context without hearing the whole thing, and then therefore they misinterpret it.
Well, it's, there's so many stories that go out there, and, I know people didn't control the story. I can control this story because it's already happened.
Yeah.
It's not ongoing. They died in 2012. There's a slight overlap with Sevco and the things that they've got up with. Whereas, like the Sevco story, it's like, this is happening and that's happening, and then stuff happens in the public and people are like, what the hell? But wait a minute, I thought this was going to happen and that's going to happen. And that's an absolute nightmare, and it's not really something that I'm interested. I've tried to throw out things that are related to Sevco, particularly the New Club thing, which I'm immensely proud of, proving that thing. But, yeah, definitely just explaining it. And that's why the idea of 3 mediums was, and, it's not been easy, but that's definitely been the hardest, because you can put up with all the bullshit and the threats and even the kind of apathy you get for all these people who claim to be phenomenal Celtic supporters but actually aren't interested in anything you do, say, or whatever. You put up with all that shit, and it kind of, you crocodile skin it, basically. Whereas actually explaining it to people, because I genuinely believe, Graham, that when people actually get their head around this whole thing and what Murray did, they will revolt.
Yeah. And, it's also the type of thing where all of the information is going to be presented as you're describing here, where it's going to be easily digested, and, there's not going to be this sort of, up in the air aspect. It's all going to be presented there.
Yeah, and the first rule of film is show, don't tell, which is exactly what we intend to do.
Yeah, and I think, most people are sort of well-versed in the general background, but it's just the specifics. It's filling in the gaps, and then it's confirming what we've all suspected, for so long. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, you're going up against top people. You're putting names in the frame. Nobody mentioned Angus Grossart before he was in that book in any kind of relation whatsoever to the Rangers story. But the reality is he was an absolutely integral part of everything that they did. Now, I'm quite happy to go after people like that. You know what I mean? I'm absolutely quite happy to go after people like that. And that's no hard. What's hard is saying to people, stop focusing on the soldiers, focus on the dons. You know what I mean? Stop focusing on the wee guys that done their wee bit, because they were all taking orders. And trying to get that mindset of people, and hopefully we'll be able to do that with the film.
Next topic, Paul. You mentioned you've written a book, you've done the audiobook, and now you're making a film. Which has been the easiest for you to do?
That's a good question, actually. Probably audiobook by absolute far. on the basis that just actually recording the audiobook is an immensely hard thing to do. An immensely hard thing to do. See, what happens is, like, I would recommend for anybody, because, you know, I'm going as I learn. You know, if you look at my books, to begin with, they were very much a fanzine style, very much a kind of street feel to it, no very much professionalism, like the odd good story and all that, but, you know, a kind of organised. And then they started to get a bit more professional and, you know, a bit more structured and all that kind of thing. And what I learnt for the audiobook, Graham, is that anybody who writes a book, and I would advise anybody this, anybody who writes a book, the best thing to do after you've written it is to record yourself reading it. Because then you actually read the thing out loud and you can tell what reads well and what doesn't. And that was really, you know, an important kind of thing. I mean, secondly, I got a lot of criticism with the Asterisk Gears book in the sense that it wasn't just every single aspect wasn't related to David Murray and all that kind of thing. And there was one reason for that, Graham, was that everybody who'd bought my books previous to the Asterisk Gears all commented that the things that they loved most was the kind of storytelling aspect to me when I was telling stories, and it felt like I was telling it directly to them, and that was the style I'd always tried to write in, which was me and the other guy or whoever's reading it in a bar, and I'm just telling the story, right? So there was no way I was just going to then jump for doing that completely with books to then saying, right, now I'm going to do something completely different, you know, and just spring it on people like that. Because I love telling stories, you know, and all that kind of thing. And so that's why I put it in. Now, a lot of people who were new to my books, who had heard the podcast and all that kind of thing, were like, well, what's this shite, and all that kind of thing. And that's fine, you can have their own opinion of that. But that was basically just a sort of a thank you and a kind of a nod to the people who'd basically allowed me the platform to go and write a book like the Asterisk Gears. Now, what I've learned for that, Graham, is that in the future, and the next book I do is going to be completely non-personal to me. You know, it's going to be about the subject matter. And that if I ever write books that are just about me, or if they're just about you know, stories that I've been involved in or whatever, then that's all the book will be about. And similarly, the next book will be completely something that'll not be about me whatsoever. There'll be no personal reflection. I'll not be writing it in the first person, anything like that. So that's the easiest part. The hardest part, the film was a bit paint by numbers for me. As I said before, anybody can be a filmmaker. You just need to point a camera at somebody and get them to talk, or get them to dance, or get them whatever the hell it is you're putting on that camera, right? And I'm telling you, it's not that difficult. It really is not that difficult. I'll tell you right now, people who are in the business will tell you it's difficult, right? And if you want the absolute geniuses, the kind of Matrix guys and the people who do it, then of course that's hard. But if it's a point and shoot type scenario, then it's not that difficult. But of course, they'll try and tell you it's difficult because the first question they ask you when you approach them is, oh, what's your budget? In other words, what they're trying to say to you is, how much can I skim you for here, you know?
Yeah.
So that, you know, but that was very, the film in itself, that was very, because, you know, you're kind of painting by numbers, you know what I mean? It's like...
Well, but you also have to get the right people surrounding you, too. I mean, that's a key component of planning the film itself. I mean, almost... certainly not to the same level as the content itself, but it's got to be up there in terms of the priority list.
Yeah, and exactly. And we're using 4 different types of cameras, from the professional ones you see in films straight back to camera phones, right? Which, by the way, are HD quality in the main and all that kind of thing, but they're not the sort of stuff you see on film. But we're going to have to mix and match that. Plus, we've got a genius editor and producer who can muck about with that kind of thing. And it's good because I'm telling you now, anybody who thinks they can just get their own camera and make a film, it's deluded. Because I used to think, I can just do that. And it's never going to be. It couldn't even. I mean, basically, if you were to say, for example, an HD quality camera that costs you £500, and you think you shoot a movie on it and you watch it back on your computer or whatever, and you go, that looks absolutely fantastic. That's like my telly and that kind of thing. I'm telling you right now, when you put that on a cinema screen, what it will look like is pixelated.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I never had a clue about that, and I'm just telling you that because I've gained that knowledge in the last few months. I'm not an expert, but these are the things you are. So, certainly, the book was the easiest, audiobook was hardest, but I tell you, the film's the most rewarding.
Next topic. You talk about, you know, with the whole project, people coming up and you know, maybe having like a misconception of what's going on. What's been the biggest misconception, or I guess the constant sort of consistent theme with you know, misinterpretation or misconception of the project itself?
Probably the amount of systematic abuse has come from people who haven't read the book. And it started before the book came out, where, prominent people on Twitter were telling me what was in it. And I was thinking, how on earth can they possibly know what's in it? And then I would read what they were saying, and I'd be like, oh, they didn't actually know what's in it. And, one of the big things that was before the book, everybody was saying it was all about the Edinburgh Masons. Mm-hmm. And it just isn't. These people are way, way, way above the Masons. So, secondly, there seems to have been a sort of perception that other people were involved in it, other prominent Celtic people, which they just weren't. Any of these people have done a single thing to ever help me in anything like this. Ever. Full stop. And I didn't mean people like yourself or the homeboys that. I'm talking about other people that are kind of in this game. I've never had any help for any of them at all on this, on the subject matter, on the source material or anything like that at all. So, and lastly, a popular kind of misconception is that I made it all up. Which was just, just kind of, you try and laugh that off because there are people out there who, we all know who they are, right? They're masquerading as Celtic supporters to get a career, and they seethe in the background and try and put every single thing that they can. And you get people who want you to get their acceptance. You know what I mean? The same people who tell me that they hate the media, and they hate this and they hate that and they hate all the papers. And I said, great, fine, that's your own choice. And then they'll say, when's this going to appear in the media? It's like, so you hate them, but you need their acceptance of the story before you actually believe it.
Right. That's some sort of credibility. You need that. I mean, I pride myself on being a pretty good judge of character, right? And I'll tell you something. When I started to reveal certain things, somebody said to Jason for the Homeboys, well, why doesn't he tell Alec Thompson? And let Alec Thompson do it, right? And I was just like, and Jason, Jason being Jason, was like, you must be fucking joking. So he's just going to hand him the work that he's done. Now, right for the get-go, I was like, I didn't trust that Alec Thompson as far as going to throw him. He's a fucking hack. Goes on to compare us to Millwall fans, etc., etc., etc. Right.
That's the choices that you make. I've made bad choices in the past, like we all have. Yep. But at the end of the day, it's like, I've put a hell of a lot of stuff into this project, and I've travelled miles and stories, and even in the last couple of weeks, even this weekend, last weekend, I've been here, there and everywhere, always under the cover of secrecy, always under the cover of different things to make this story and these things happen, Mm-hmm. And so it's, as you know, when you were in America, David Murray made a serious attempt. Sorry, when you were in Edinburgh, I beg your pardon. David Murray made a serious attempt to get this book stopped.
Yep.
A serious attempt. And he couldn't fucking do it. So I just say to anybody, if it's all bollocks, then why did he try and stop it? You know what I mean? I'll judge. I'm not one of these idiots. It's like only God can judge me. But you know what I mean? It's like I can only put the stuff out there, and if you believe it, fine. If you didn't believe it, that's your prerogative. But I'm telling you now, listen back to these shows, listen back to these interviews. I was saying to people a year ago, Dave King would have faded away by now. Nobody believed me then. I was saying all the different things that would happen with Sevco and Rangers, and the new club stuff, and the Walter Smith stuff where they never paid him, and all that kind of thing. These things. I only put this stuff out there when I'm 100% certain that it's true. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I stand by everything. And even when I said I was one of the first people who mentioned the fact that how Murray was going to try get back was the Calix project, which is the Green Belt of Edinburgh. And it was delighted to see 2 or 3 people tweeting me about 2 weeks ago saying, when it was on the news, a year after it had been in the book almost, by the way, Murray's involved in it. I said, oh, that's the thing you're talking about in the book. I said, exactly. And the hardest thing, Graham, is that nobody knows anything about this stuff when it's there. Mm-hmm. And so they just kind of dismiss it, or I'm not really interested. And bit by bit, the pieces come together. Mm-hmm. So, I like to, because at the end of the day, being a writer and all that kind of thing is a pretty lonely experience anyway. And I've tried to help every single person that's ever came to me and said, I'm looking for advice and all that kind of thing. And I could name you 5 people right now. I could name you 5 Celtic books right now that I've been involved in, at some form or other. Not looking for any credit or anything like that. But that's what I do. But I'm telling you, it's not reciprocated by everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's what people need to understand as well, is that a lot of people put themselves out on a limb and they didn't just sit behind computers waiting on information. They go out there and try and get it. And they're the people that have been helping me, and they sit in the background. They never want credit. They never want anything. But I tell you, they're the ones that matter. So, as I say, hopefully that's kind of some of the misconceptions and some of the rubbish you have to put up with. But at the end of the day, it's a small factor.
Next topic. You mentioned having to go here, there, and everywhere to get this project going up, off the ground.
Is this topic, me all the time?
Just...
All right.
Be calm. This is not what you were expecting.
No, it's not.
I know this. This is
Let's go. Come on.
This is why I did this. You mentioned you having to go here, there, and everywhere. And I'm interested. And I think people are interested in this as well. You announced the world tour of the Astroskiers project this past week. And by the way, the poster looks fantastic. I want to get a sense for what this tour is going to be all about. Is this going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll? I mean, you're going Glasgow, you're going Larne, you're going plowing the stars for the U.S. premiere, and then you're going to Sonoma County. I mean, is there going to be an element of Paul Giamatti in this?
Paul Giamatti. Paul Castellano, probably. I mean, the dead one, But no. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, for fuck's sake, read by any means necessary. I've done that. You know what I mean? It's like I can't keep doing that. I'll die. But let me say a few things about the tour, actually. Now we mentioned it, right. First off, right, premieres in Glasgow. A few people, where's it going to be? When you buy a ticket, you'll know where it is, right? I'm not putting it out there for obvious reasons. For Christ's sake, if you didn't understand why I can't put out the venue the tour now, then I don't know what you've been reading in the books or listening to anything I've said. Right, that's the first thing. Second thing, Larne. Everybody, all these people, why are you going to Larne? Because they invited me. Right.
Well, and you had a good event there, for a book launch last year. Yeah,
fantastic launch there. Great Celtic supporters. First Nationalist Mary Larne is now in place. A good friend of mine, Martin Wilson. I'll go wherever people ask me to go. I'm not. I've had people say, "No, you should phone up them and phone up." I'm not phoning up anybody. If people want to see the film, they can see the film. I'll bring it to them. No problem. It'll not cost them a lot of money. I put the frequently asked questions out there. Numbers dependent on the money, the deal, whatever you want to do is dependent on how many people will be in the venue, right? That kind of thing. People asking me. So hopefully that kind of the preconception are gone, and subsequently, I'd say Nairn. Nairn's at the top of Scotland, absolute top of Scotland. But you've got a guy up there, James Wallace, an absolute phenomenal supporter of the Astroskiers, right? The books, the audio books, and the film, absolutely phenomenal. So he was like, we'd love to have you up here. And I could tell that he said it tentatively, as in, there's no chance. I was like, James, when do you want it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because that's what it's all about. I'm not going to forget a guy who supported me in the low points of this project when it becomes a high point. And I say, thanks very much for that, James, but you can piss off now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
No chance.
Yeah.
So we go in there. We've had a huge amount of interest since the announcement. And you're right, the poster is absolutely phenomenal. Somebody that I can't mention on air, he knows who he is best out there.
Yeah.
So we are filling dates in Britain and Ireland. Talks are at an advanced stage with Dublin. Talks are ongoing with Belfast. Manchester's interested. London's interested. Various locations are in Australia are interested at the minute. We've got people in the West Coast that are working. Now we've got people coming to talk about Melbourne and all that kind of thing. And you know what, Graham? Sometimes I hesitate saying this thing. You know why? Because anytime I come on these shows and say anything's going well, there is always one person out there that's like, I'm going to try and spoil that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm going to try and spoil that. But I'm telling you now, I'm in a much better place and I can deal with that so much easier. Even this weekend, huge things happening with this documentary. Huge people interested and all that kind of thing. Now, whatever happens in the future with that documentary, I'm still going to take it around the world, people. It's still going to... Celtic supporters have got to see it before the rest of the world sees it. You can guarantee that. I can make that guarantee. What the other great thing about the tour being is, Graham, is that virtually every location that's asked me to come has said, and obviously I'll put you up and all that kind of thing. Now, I can tell you right now, that's not something everybody thinks of.
Right.
So you'll have to literally sort of think here, and you think to yourself, okay, that's fine, you want this movie, that's fine. How much is it going to cost me to fly there? How much is it going to cost me to stay there? Is it actually going to be worthwhile? Because the last thing you want to go to people and say, actually, I need to charge you $3,000 for this because it's costing me that for, for digs and this and that and all that kind of thing. Just bunkering up with somebody just saves an absolute fortune.
Sure.
And so you kind of feel the world getting closer a wee bit, you know what I mean? The world getting smaller. So in terms of the tour, again, it's like anything, you know what I mean? The way the world is now, people, the Asterisk Year's book sold an absolutely phenomenal amount. The biggest selling Celtic-related book last year anywhere, right? Also the one that was basically the only one that Celtic wouldn't recognise in their shop. So that's a kind of two-way slant on it. But I tell you, you still think it's relatively small numbers. A hell of a lot more than I ever used to be selling. By any means necessary to be the next one. But then you see the sales figures for other books, and for top authors, and even for musicians and all that kind of thing. And the only time they can actually do anything with their product, wherever they go, is to take it on tour.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what I want to do with this movie. Then, of course, we go to January and we go to Philadelphia. Now, that means a lot to me because the seeds, the Asterisk Years, were basically starting to be sown the day that, we went and we met up in Philly and yourself and Seamus and Rev and Coach and Darren Dalton, and all that kind of mob was there. And that was the kind of just the start. It was just the kind of in the ether then, there was just wee bits and pieces and stuff going on. So obviously I've got the East Coast Celtic supporters meet, which obviously I wasn't at in January, but I believe was a resounding success, despite the fact that you were there. And then from there I go to Sonoma County. And people say, well, why you go to Sonoma County? Because they invited me.
Right.
It's that simple. And then they come back to the Bronx. We're going to take the roof off in the Bronx. The Godfather Bronx, Mr. Duffy's on the case. Biggest Irish pub in the Bronx is going to show. It's going to be a full day's festivities. And there'll probably be a couple of other locations within New York and all that kind of thing. Then we're going to go to the St. Patrick's Festival in Coatbridge, which I'd been at last year. Had an absolute phenomenal gig, thanks to Joe Bradley. And then we'll take it to Australia, Graham. And then after that, who knows? It could be Vegas, it could be anywhere.
So you honestly want us to believe that there's not going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I just want to go on record with that.
Well, I was kind of hoping there was, but then you said you were bringing your wife to Philly, so...
Next topic. Who is Bob? Tell me now. Who is he?
Fuck's sake. Aye, well, it's... no, that... I'm
is he your uncle?
That's... is it what?
Is he your uncle?
Is he my uncle? No, he's not. Bob's a very, very brave guy, is who he is. And, as someday, I'll reveal it on my deathbed or when he goes, like Deep Throat with, Bob Woodward. But Bob is someone who was a central player in the Murray sort of organisation, and I mean that in terms of his whole world, for the best part of 30 years, and was able to paint a world that I had no real sort of knowledge of, despite the fact that I lived for a mile away from it for 30 years. Now I've had quite a few people say to me that they know who he is, and nobody's ever got it right. I've had a lot of people say it's Phil McGillivon. I can assure you that's not the case. I've had a lot of people say to me it's Martin Bain. I can assure you that's not the case because Bob's intelligent. I've had 2 or 3 people say it's Alistair Johnson. I can assure you Alistair's one of the boys, no matter what he sees in public, but it's not him.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of fun and games and that, but, listen, that guy went out on a limb to give me information that provided the start of the Asterisk Here story, a story that's developed. The book, had the stuff in it that we had in it, and then the audio book sort of enhanced that a wee bit and evolved that a wee bit, and the movie does it even more. And none of that, and I mean none of that, would be possible without somebody like Bob, Now, I'll tell you what is as well, is it because what's actually happened since Bob and since the book is I now have other people who come forward to me with information and enhance things and all that kind of thing. And that's really nice because they're putting their trust in you, and I could, and they're saying, hoping that you treat them the same way you treat Bob and you didn't reveal who they are or anything like that. it's given me sort of other things. One of my sources actually passed away this week, which is David Taylor, who works for the SFA.
Yeah.
David Taylor was a fantastic source for information about the SFA on the basis that he got out quick enough. Couldn't get out quick enough because he saw how corrupt it was within the SFA. And so, obviously extend good wishes to his family at a sad time. He was dying suddenly at 60. But in terms of Bob, I wouldn't be able to write another book, which might please some people, or write another article ever again if I was to give you the name of him. So, Graham, I'm sorry. You can throw sex, you can throw drugs, you can throw rocket low at me. I can't tell you.
All right, listen, I tried. I tried to get anything and everything that I could. And, I'll let the listeners be the judge.
I know it's an exact deep throat scenario, and I know you're an expert on deep throat, but I just and being in Washington DC and all that kind of thing. But I'm sorry, I can't.
Oh, that's what you mean, that I'm an expert in deep throat because I'm in Washington DC? Is that it?
Yeah, Watergate. What the hell's wrong with you?
Jesus.
What kind of mind have you got?
Next topic, Paul. We got a lot of great feedback from the show last week where you spoke so eloquently and passionately about Paul McStay, and what he meant to Celtic and what he meant to you, what kind of guy he was. And I want to take this theme ongoing, for future shows because, it really resonates with a lot of people. This week I want to turn our attention to Martin O'Neill, and I want you to give us your sense of how he stacks up against any and all of the football greats that have passed through Parkhead's gates. How does he stack up?
Well, 1st of June 2000, I was working at the North Edinburgh News, and it had been in the ether that Martin was potentially going to be the new manager, and my mate Kenny, who used to own the Chippy, good Celtic man, my bit, phoned me up and he says, we've got him. And we were absolutely delighted, because you just knew. You found out later that Goose Hiddink was, we kind of thought, we're going to get him, and Dermot said, no, he's not got a fire in his eyes, Martin has, and that was it. Martin O'Neill was like a tornado coming into Celtic Park. And it actually saddens me, Graham, the amount of people who have just clearly football illiterates who say, Martin O'Neill, it was all long ball and the football was shite. Absolute, utter nonsense. You know what I mean? Martin O'Neill's teams were always built the same way. They had a strong defensive platform. They had two guys sitting in the middle of the midfield, anchoring, and then they would all have flair players play. Tell me Didi Ragat's a strong physical player, or Bobby Pettit or Luba Moravcik or anything like that. Yes, Henrik and Sutton and that could handle themselves. But for Christ's sake, some of the football we say with me. And what's important, Graham, is that what Martin O'Neill instilled back in Celtic was a pride. We'd had a 10-year period that we had no knowledge at the time of, from 88 to 98, of misery, absolute misery, where we were literally a goal down at Ibrox every time we went there. It was a psychological edge that they had over us.
Yeah.
Martin comes along, he won at Ibrox every single season he was a manager. Don't ever underestimate that. That was the absolute key to his success. You go to Ibrox, you go to the Rain Midden, and you take the 3 points, and you fucking demoralise them, right?
Well, and he was so intelligent too. He comes from such a cerebral background, and I think that really resonated throughout. He just boxed more clever than anybody.
Well, he come into the club, and the first thing he done was play everything down and say Rangers were the benchmark. Meanwhile, he was telling the players, listen, we're going to win the league. If you didn't believe we're going to win the league, get the fuck, right? The day of the 6-2 game, I know for a cast iron fact, 15 minutes before kick-off, Eric Riley was in the tunnel, seen Martin O'Neill, said, how's this mood the camp? And Martin says, we're going to hammer them. Now, I'm telling you right now, there is not a Celtic supporter in that ground that can tell the truth and say he thought we were going to even win that game that day. But we absolutely demoralised them. And that's something they never, ever recovered from. They never, ever recovered for that, right? Second of all, you're talking about his intelligence. I'll take you to 2004 when Neil Lennon got some of the most vitriolic hatred I've ever heard at a football match at Ibrox. And Martin came on at the end of the game, raised his hand and kind of put his arm on his shoulder and says, I'm with you 100%. And it really Celtic supporters really, really resonated to that. They asked Martin about it after the game. He wasn't interested. No comment. Who did we play on the Wednesday? Barcelona away. Europe's media there. Then he went on record about the issue. And he made it an issue all over Europe.
Yeah.
The anti-Irish racism that Neil Lennon suffered at a football match that we played at the weekend, which put on the agenda for the first time ever on a European scale that led to Rangers getting bans and fines and all sorts of things because of the vitriol that was coming out of their mouths. Martin O'Neill, what he done for Celtic should never ever be underestimated, right? And yeah, Dermot bankrolled him, but listen, we were up against a juggernaut.
Absolutely.
We were up against the most expensive Rangers team ever, and he dismantled it in one season. One fucking season. Come in, boom, there's a treble. A treble. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it in my life before or since.
When he completely outclassed Dick Advocaat, which, at the time, I mean, he was, one of the higher rated managers in the world, and he just absolutely picked him apart.
Yeah, and he never ever suffered feel gladly. And one story I must tell on Martin before you interject your own feelings is, John Paul Taylor told me once that Martin O'Neill gave him the biggest bollocking he had ever had in his entire life. It was when Celtic played Bayern Munich at Celtic Park, November 2003. The day before the game, Chris Sutton phoned the ticket office. He said, I'm looking for 6 tickets for the game tomorrow. Now, the players had already got 24 each, right? So John Paul said, the only thing I can do for you is restricted view. And he was kind of like, oh, for fuck's sake, and he mumping and moaning, and the phone went down. So he was like, well, nothing else I can do. 10 minutes later, phone goes, it's Henrik Larsson. I'm looking for 6 tickets for the game tomorrow. So John Paul's no daft. He knew exactly what was happening. And he's like, well, I said the same to Chris. I'll say the same to you. I can only get restricted view. All right, okay, that's fine. No problem. I'll send somebody over to collect them. Come to that night, the team goes away to the hotel, do the pre-team meeting, tactics, so on and so forth, right? Chris Sutton says, before you start here, I tried to get 6 tickets for this game tomorrow, and the only thing he could offer me was restricted view. And Henrik says, yeah, I was the same. So Martin's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He says, well, listen, we're playing in this game. We can't even get tickets and that kind of thing. Right, okay, that's fine. Next again day, JP gets the phone call from Martin. Come over to my office, I want to see you immediately. Now, JP said every single time he'd seen Martin in the past, he was basically saying to him, all right, JP, how you doing? Good to see you. He's an absolute diamond of a guy. First time we won the league under Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill came over, ticket office party, how he's going, how much did all that cost you? He said, £1,000. He said, there's £2,000, away and enjoy yourselves. £2,000 out the pocket, pay for the party. That was Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
Came in, John Paul said, walked in the office, he never told me, he said, just tell me, shut the door. He said, for 45 minutes, he gave me the biggest bollocking in my life. Henrik Larsson, restricted fucking view. What's that man done for this club? And that's what you fucking offer him. On and on and on and on. 45 minutes, and then, now get the fuck out of my office, right? So JP says, remember then, I need to go to that game that night and watch my so-called heroes who could easily have got me sacked by this point. And I'm shaking because I'm just like, what the fuck? So the next day he said, I had never slept a wink. Got up the next game day, he went, you know what, I'm going to stand there, I'm going to fucking stand on my own 2 feet here because I think I'm in the right. He went over, knocked on the door, could I speak to you, Martin? Aye, come in. He said, I just want to say, I think you're out of order. And he says, I think you're totally out of order. He says, they get 24 tickets, they all had 24 tickets, they asked for 6. It's the day before one of the biggest games we've ever played. I think it was, to even get them restricted view was a fucking joy, never mind, this, that, and next thing. So Martin O'Neill sat there, listening to all, and he said to JP, you know what, you're 100% right, JP. I was in the wrong, and I tell you, I wish this club was full of people like you. And that was Martin O'Neill. He made you feel 10 feet tall.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that gets into the whole psychological aspect. I mean, and there's so much more to being a football manager than picking the teams and tactics and training and picking players and so on. I mean, he like you've described and like I've studied, he re-injected a belief in this club. That I mean, we can stand on our own 2 feet and we can compete not just with the Huns at the time, but we can compete with Europe's best. He got every player on that park believing that, and I think present day, I think a great example of the sort of didactic nature of Martin O'Neill. He's a fantastic pundit. Much has been made about the punditry of former Celtic players or managers, with Neil Lennon doing an exceptional job by all accounts, as well as Martin O'Neill. And the one clip that has been passed around pretty consistently is, I believe he was with Patrick Vieira. I guess it was Adrian Chiles, and the third name is, I think it was Cannavaro, maybe?
Cannavaro,
yeah. Where they were talking about, basically almost taking the piss out of Martin, and he just flipped it around. He's like, well, excuse me, but I think I have 2 European championships, so maybe I know what the hell I'm talking about. And they're just sitting there with their mouths open. I mean, it just speaks volumes to this sort of British mentality of, right, fall in line. This is, the criteria that we're measured on. It's like, wait, hold on a minute. You're completely warped.
There's 2 things about it, right? First of all, the first Champions League game we ever played was in Turin against Juventus. It should have been Rosenborg. It got cancelled because of 9/11, right? At that time, in 2001, Juventus were almost invincible. They were almost invincible. That's how good they were. And I watched us go to Turin in that game. I was at the game, and we played them off the park that night.
Absolutely.
And we were robbed by a cheater Amoruso penalty, right? I mean, that's incredible. And secondly, the 6-2 game, I sat in that Lisbon Lions stand right behind the goals where we scored the first 3 goals in. See when that ball came across for Paul Lambert for Lubo, and he ran in and smashed it in, Graham, you could have taken me there and then up to heaven, and I would never have questioned it. I have never in my entire life been as happy as I was when that ball hit the net. And I know you're meant to say about your kids and all that kind of thing, the marriage, I got married, I'm telling you, see when Paul Lambert laced that ball into that net, I'm sitting right next to the Huns. I see the net burst. People are exploding. They're crying everywhere. The emotion's unbelievable. I turned round to my left and I watched 7,000 ghosts. 7,000 people who looked like they'd just been bereaved. They could not believe what they were saying. People were going absolutely mental. And I'm telling you, I've never experienced just sheer and unbridled joy as I did when that Paul Lambert won. And that was down to Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill had them revved up and ready to go, as he always did against the Huns. And as you say, as he always did against anybody in Europe. And it was really unfortunate how it ended with the whole Scott McDonald thing and all that kind of thing. But that's Celtic. It's a roller coaster. Nothing is ever easy with Celtic. But I tell you, it got a lot easier when Martin O'Neill was manager.
And with that being said, we raise a glass tonight to Martin O'Neill. Next topic. Luis Suarez has he's found himself in a bit of bother once again. Surprise, surprise. Conclusive evidence. We all have to agree that he bit Giorgio Chiellini. Chiellini came out straight after it happened, wanted to display the bite marks for all to see. It unfortunately for the Italians didn't lead to a sending off, although in hindsight it probably should have. There's a perfectly good explanation as to perhaps why he wasn't sent off. But nonetheless, his third time, I guess, being caught biting an opposing player, it's unbelievable. He's been levied a 4-month ban from football. Can't even train. He's allowed to be transferred, so want to make that clear. But can't go to the football ground. Can't train with Liverpool or whatever club team that he would be playing with at any point. And he's also suspended 9 games. Paul, in your opinion, is this punishment? Is this appropriate? Is this harsh enough? Is this too harsh?
Well, I mean, look, there's clearly an issue there. I mean, 3 times it's happened now that we know about. I mean, it could have easily happened in other games we didn't know about. And I say now, I don't think Liverpool will own a Liverpool shirt again. I think this will just pave the way for Liverpool to say, you know what, he's a great player and all that, but, we get a good transfer fee, he can go. I don't understand what was going through his head with the incident. I tell you something else as well. I mean, people might not agree, but Chiellini's reaction as well was, I know a lot of hard-main defenders wouldn't even have batted an eyelid at that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They would have just got on with the game. Perfect example of that, 1992 European Championships, France against England. Basil Bolly run full pelt into Stuart Pearce, headbutted his cheek, burst it wide open. Pearce never batted an eyelid, asked about it after the game. She said, oh my God, the incident with Basil Bolly, you must be raging at it. And Pearce just looked at the commentator and says, I think the boy just bumped into me. That's how he reacted to it. No being like, But well,
it was clear that he was trying to get him sent off. I mean, here's the evidence. It's the World Cup.
The thing. It's like what kind of levels do you think? Because there are clear definitions between certain things people do on the football pitch. We see biting is a no-no, spitting a no-no. But if somebody breaks somebody's leg, people wouldn't react as badly to that. Whatever, but it's a shocking tackle. But like, my ma wouldn't bat an eyelid, but she would say, that Suarez is an animal. No, look what he's doing, that kind of thing. But somebody might have snapped somebody's leg in the previous game. She would even mention it. It's the different levels. And I mean, there's clear psychological things. I didn't buy this bullshit that Gordon Strachan was coming about. Well, they're all fully poverty down there. Oh, aye, right, Gordon. You came from one of the most impoverished areas in Western Europe. You know what I mean? And you never wrote about biting people. You were narky as fuck at referees and all that kind of thing. But you never done that. So, I don't know. I mean, look, it's like, when I heard, who was it? Lee Dixon said, well, what happens with these players down there is that, they try and lift everybody out of poverty that's in there. I mean, for fuck's sake, Luis Suarez must be worth about 100 million by now.
That's unbelievable that they would say that.
If he could have lifted half of Uruguay out of fucking poverty by now, you know what I mean? The money he's got. So, punishment, I thought, was more political. I think FIFA It's amazing how quickly they react to something like that.
Well, they were forced to react, weren't they? I mean, especially in light of the fact that there is so much. They're under so much embarrassment from other issues. They were almost forced to take some sort of declarative stand on this without, taking themselves into complete and utter mockery.
Well, Graham, look, there was two things in British television, right? One, he's a foreigner. Therefore, dodgy. That's always the perception. Secondly, the previous game, he'd basically knocked England out. So that was the kind of narrow-minded little Englanders like Shearer and all that were kind of like, oh my God, hang him, flog him and all that kind of thing and whatever. The guy's clearly got problems, right? And he clearly has a temper that's beyond belief. And I don't know why he reacts like that. There's a guy I know who used to play football with all the time. He used to always try and poke you in the eye. Rather no punch in the face, and he could do it. Or kick you, he was poking at you. Just something, I don't know. But 4 months for banning for football. I know Franz Beckenbauer got 6 for, I'm not sure what, no speaking up at a hearing or something like that. It all seems a wee bit silly, and everybody seems a bit carried away. And it's like, I don't know how you solve some a case like Luis Suarez. They were saying on the telly, Liverpool done this and next. I didn't believe Liverpool done anything. You know what I mean? I think Liverpool just were like, right, fine, whatever. But the incidents fall around this guy, don't they? You know what I mean? We've not just got the bite in. There was a whole racial incident with Patrice Evra.
Exactly.
He made a complete fool of Kennedy Dalglish by telling him he did shake Patrice Evra's hand in the lineup, which he clearly never. And Kennedy Dalglish said, no, he told me he did. And Kennedy Dalglish made a complete fool of himself. And, I'm not the greatest fan of the guy, and I must admit, I actually thought FIFA were going to make him a real example of him. But I tell you, I just think that right now the players are worth so much money, and there's so much prestige around them that basically, the one thing I would say with Gordon Strachan is that there isn't any morals in football anymore.
No.
Anybody can do anything as long as they can play.
Exactly. As long as you're good enough, you're not going to be held to the same standard. We want to talk about, football is sick at this point, and there's certain maladies going on. I think this is one of the symptoms. If you're good enough, you're not going to be held to the same account. You talk about the difference between this and a strong challenge that may break somebody's leg or lead to a serious injury. I think there's two different contexts here. I mean, in the context of a football game, you're not going to have a situation where your mouth, you're not using your mouth. It's not going to be incidental where you accidentally bite somebody. I mean, he was biting Chiellini to in my opinion, force a reaction to potentially get him sent off. There's also been claims that Suarez has done this on purpose to try and force a move away from Liverpool. I don't know if I want to get into these sort of metaphysical conspiracy theories, but what I will say is you have a lot of Liverpool supporters coming out and saying, "Oh, this is so bad against Liverpool, and how you're punishing Liverpool more than Uruguay, and it's not fair." Liverpool knew exactly the type that they were signing to that massive extension. Which by the way, I mean, he's fined 66,000 quid. I mean, that's a third of his weekly wage. So I mean, to say that this is a substantial punishment, I'm not going to buy it. This is another in a long line of you've been a naughty boy, and now you're going to go sit in the naughty boy corner. And that's not what is required at this point. Like you said, he's sick. He needs help. I mean, I think a prerequisite for him to return to football would need to be, in my opinion, get him some counseling. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about this guy. They only care about what he can provide for them. If Liverpool cared at all about Suarez, they would have gotten him this help already, but they haven't. I mean, after he bites somebody, after he bites Ivanovic, after he comes out with the racial situation, what do? They come out with pictures of him on T-shirts for the players to wear. They're going to rally around him and sort of, in my opinion, this is enabling. You need to stop and say, wait, this is unacceptable. And this excuse of, it's acceptable in other countries. Well, I'm sorry. Was apartheid acceptable for, 50 plus years in South Africa? Well, apartheid's okay in South Africa, so we'll just let it go. Absolutely not. Biting somebody is not acceptable behavior on a football match. Think about, somebody that's having to go up and play against, Luis Suarez, and he might bite you. I mean, seriously. I mean, there's acceptable codes of conduct and how you handle yourself, and add into addition to the fact that Luis Suarez, his pictures on all sorts of adverts. He's clearly adored. Based on what he's done on the football park, for good reason. But he's adored by children, and to send the message to children that, you know what? the rules don't apply to you as long as you're good enough at football. I'm sorry, that's not the message that you need to send out there to children, and it's not doing Luis Suarez himself any service at all. He's going to serve this ban. He's going to come back and say, "Oh, I was so hard done by." I mean, the Uruguayan coach coming out and trying to make him into a victim. I'm sorry, I'm not having it.
Well, look, I mean, the problem is, you well know, Graham, is that football's fully rank hypocrisy. Two of the people who hired strongest against Suarez were Alan Shearer and John Hartson. I'm like, is this? Am I actually listening to this shit? And I mean, that's when Gary Lineker, and you could see on Lineker's face, and you just want Lineker to say to Shearer, "Shut up, you silly cunt. You kicked Neil Lennon in the fucking head."
Here's a mirror.
John Hartson, you almost decapitated Dio Berkovic.
Find a mirror, you dick.
You know what I mean? Give us some insight into what takes somebody who's clearly a top football player, what turns them insane, because it happened to you. Don't sit there and fucking say to me, "Oh, well, you're fucking outrageous," and all that kind of thing. Shearer, you're just a little Englander prick that was so bitter about the fact that Suarez, half fit, knocked your team out the fucking thing. Just be sensible on it. But instead, it's like, no, let's just hang him. That's not the answer. Nor is being lenient as fuck because he's a top quality football player either, which he clearly is. But he's clearly a fucking nasty, horrible prick. Like, there's no getting away for that.
Well, and this whole concept of Liverpool fans coming out and saying, "Oh, it's such a disservice, and you're punishing Liverpool twice because now they have to pay us." I'm sorry. Luis Suarez was never going to play for Liverpool next season anyway. You touched on it. He was going away this summer. His wife is from Barcelona. His agent is Pep Guardiola's brother. And yes, Guardiola now manages Munich, but you're never going to detach the Guardiola name from Barcelona. Luis Suarez wanted to play his football next season at Barcelona. It was always going to happen. Now, what happened in the process is Barcelona just got a discount. They just got a 20 to 30 million pound discount because nobody's going to pay 100 million quid for a player who at any point can be suspended for months or at this point, next step from here is we're talking about years or potentially just banned completely. So nobody's going to pay top dollar for a player that has that as a potential liability. So if Liverpool supporters want to be angry at anybody, they should be angry at Luis Suarez because he just cost your football club 20 to 30 million quid.
Yeah, but see, that's the problem right there, Graham. People will go in as a way of bargaining tool of, he's a nut job, that why the 80 million you want, we're only going to give you 50, right? That's the bargaining tool. But they're not doing that because it's like we have to carry the baggage of Luis Suarez to sign him for the club. They're doing that because we need to protect ourselves against a potential loss if he fucks up when he's with us.
Right.
They're happy to play him every single week until he does that.
Right.
They're none of them going to be like, "Louis, we'll take you in, but you know what we'll do first? We'll give you 2 months counselling." And Suarez says, "You know what? Why don't you go and fuck yourself?" They're going to be like, "Oh no, don't worry, we'll just take you then." They couldn't give a shit. Football couldn't give a shit. If he's putting the ball in the net, nobody will give a shit.
And that's the tragedy in all this. Nobody cares about Luis Suarez. Nobody cares about, helping him get better. It's all about, having the facade and having the image like they're going to punish him and, this is what's right and we're doing the right thing here. But at the end of the day, is any of this going to help Luis Suarez? Absolutely not.
No.
Next topic. Games that you are looking forward to most in the round of 16 in the World Cup. Your thoughts?
Colombia.
Yeah.
Colombia, Mr. Rodriguez, who I tapped it before the tournament.
James Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you. He, he's really sparkling. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, kind of looking forward to Germany, Algeria. Because, in this, one of the consequences of the whole US-Germany game and so on and so forth was the fact that, you could just play out a draw and both of you could get through and you were, absolutely no, that kind of thing. Well, the reason we were saying that is because there's precedent. The precedent was, of course, West Germany when they done it with Austria, when they beat them 1-0, and that was the result everybody needed, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've heard of you, Phil Neville said, I've done it with Man United played Bayern Munich, we both need a draw. And we said we were piling forward, and it won't matter. Hisfield's looking at Alex Ferguson saying, "What the fuck are you doing?" He said, so it goes on. But here we have 32 years on, I beg your pardon, Algeria's chance to hit Germany for what happened in that tournament when they were basically robbed of second round qualification by the fact that West Germany and Austria are treated. So I'm interested to see that spectacle because I don't know about you, Graham. I don't think the Germans are all that, some good players, good organisation, that kind of thing.
One striker though, one striker.
Yeah, and he will be marshalled by better defenders, no doubt about that.
You think so?
And the other one I'll be looking forward to is Holland against Mexico, because I'm interested to see how Holland, because I genuinely believe if Holland come through this comfortably, I think they'll probably win the tournament.
Yeah, no question. I mean, like you said, the first thing that pops up to me is Colombia versus Uruguay, and Uruguay without Luis Suarez. And I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Somebody and some people put up that group with Italy, England, Costa Rica, and Uruguay is the group of death. It wound up being the group of crap, and Uruguay limped through that group with Luis Suarez. Now without him, I mean, certainly they're not going to be toothless, but I mean, he was a key component to them advancing. Let's not kid ourselves. And without him, and with that whole mental aspect of what has transpired, with the spectacle and the manager having to answer all sorts of questions, I mean, that's right for the picking for your boys from Colombia. And I think there's this sort of Renaissance feeling. There's a good feeling, and I don't know if it's transpiring over in your neck of the woods, but Colombia having that team from Italia 90 and then 94. I mean, just the absolute debacle of that, and then going through lean years after that, where it just never. It seemed like that sort of golden generation was never going to come back. Well, now, I mean, it seems like it's here. We've said it before. It's just an awful shame that Falcao is not available for that team, because, I mean, think about the damage they could do with that. So, I mean, it would be great to see Colombia advance there. And then also the other game that I'm going to have my eye on, maybe not so much in terms of the quality of the football, but, like you pointed out, the storyline is Costa Rica versus Greece. I mean, here's two teams that, I mean, when the tournament began, nobody would have expected either of them to make it to the quarterfinals. And I'm going to be interested to see, what sort of Greek side comes out. I mean, how are they going to play? I think they only really know one way to play, which is that sort of bunkering in, counterattacking. And how is Costa Rica going to match up against that tactically? I think that, the Costa Rica manager has just played an absolute blinder from a tactical perspective so far. So that's going to be interesting as well. And of course, Brazil, Chile, I mean, the thing that sort of beleaguers the Chileans is, they're always sort of sparkling and they get after it. They're so attacking and exciting to watch in the group stages, and then they just maybe lose a bit of their verve, a bit of their flair when they get into the knockout stages. It's going to be interesting to see, are they going to be intimidated by this Brazil side, or are they going to go out and, let's be honest, if you mark out Neymar from this game and you make him completely ineffectual, what else does Brazil have to lean back on? Because much of the rest of their squad has not been, I mean, it's not even been passable.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that Brazil might just start gathering speed a wee bit now. I think they were really under pressure in the group stage. You could see that and all that kind of thing. But, again, go back to you. I mean, Neymar is an absolute genius. Yeah. That guy is going to be one of the best ever, the way he's gone.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's a young boy, and he's carrying that team through. And I think Brazil might just sweep Chile aside, actually. I really do. But I have to say, Graham, I'm amazed that you've talked about all these great games you're looking forward to, and you haven't mentioned the good old US of A.
How could you be amazed after what you pointed out in the opening? I'm not giving you ammunition.
Oh, not at all.
Everybody knows.
Give us your thoughts. What's going to happen in the game?
I think a couple of keys here. Vincent Kompany is not looking like, if he's going to be ready, he's not going to be 100% fit. Now, it's not time to whistle past the graveyard, because, the Belgian side, I mean, they still have quality throughout. But even if Kompany's playing, their back line is still made up of 4 center halves. And those players don't like to splay out wide. I'd expect a lot of diagonals going, down the flanks. Try and beat him with a little pace. And if we can get Josie Altidore back, who... many people listening in are going to think, oh God, that donkey from Sunderland. I'll tell you what, he's a completely different person for the national team. Not just, in terms of what he contributes with goals, but the opportunities that he opens up for players like Michael Bradley, where, once Altidore went out, Clint Dempsey had to move up, and by proxy, Michael Bradley had to move up and play in a place where I don't think it's best suited for him. I mean, I don't think that he has sort of the experience or the wherewithal or the comfort level to weight passes in that higher up portion of the pitch, and his first touches let him down in traffic as well. I think that, he's most effective deep lying and where he can sort of facilitate the build up, distribute, and then get involved later. So we can get Bradley back in his sort of normal area, where he's accustomed to playing. Get Clint Dempsey playing just behind Josie Altidore. I think that's going to be a catalyst for a more sort of effective American side and build up. But you can't overlook the fact that Belgium have just a wealth of talent. Just skilled young players. They're going to be just a buzzsaw in Russia in 4 years' time. But maybe, the chink in the armor, if you will be, they're a collective group of individuals, and it's just a matter of, can they gel together? That's really been the missing component for them so far.
There you go.
Next topic, safe standing. This is an issue that popped up a couple of weeks ago and we've been meaning to get to, so let's get to it. It seems as though that's been put on the back burner now. Some administrative issues with city council, maybe not getting the approval. There was so much hope for this coming through in terms of, raising the atmosphere at the games and sort of turning a new leaf in terms of, specifically Celtic and the relationship with the supporters and with a specific group of the supporters. But now, it seems as though that's taken a back seat. Where are we at with this?
Well, it's I think a lot of politics are involved in this. I think Celtic have been working on this now for a year minimum. And they've been gathering information and getting all sorts of research done and blah, blah, blah. Everything you would basically need. And when it came down to the last kind of dotting of the I's and crossing the T's, at the meeting, the council said, we actually want more information for Bundesliga clubs. And it's like, what? What are you talking about kind of thing? And so it sort of died on the vine right there and then. Now, the question you've got to ask yourself is, does the City of Glasgow Council honestly believe that Bayern Munich have fucked up safe standing, or Borussia? Come on, everybody, it's the benchmark for the world, isn't it? Safe stand, stuff like that. It's a wee bit of politics, Similar situation, Graham, with the fan park that Celtic wanted to do behind the Jock Stein stand. They had scouted Man City's fan park, they had looked at it and all that kind of thing. Went to the council, and the council were like, "Oh, need more information about that." You know what I mean? And it's like, what do you need? What do you want? Like, what do you expect us? And the council basically think, well, on that respect, Graham, is that, but you're gobbling up all the industry for around the area. Which people will say, what fucking industry? There's nothing there, But in terms of the safe standing, the be-all and end-all of the safe standing was it was to be seen upon as a resolution to get the Green Brigade back in Section 111, which I still believe will happen next season in terms of getting them back in that section. And I still believe that safe standing will happen in due course, because I believe it's no that harder fix to actually change it from one to the other and so on. And also, it's not that expensive. And it's something that Celtic wanted to do. They wanted to lead for the front on this kind of. They should be a standard bearer. And we've been a standard bearer for almost 127 years now. So we should be a standard bearer and everything continuing to the next 127. So, it's a bit of a pisser. And I know people at Celtic were, really, really disconsolate about it. And certainly, because it would have been absolutely ideal, because, all the bullshit that the council come up with to kind of fuck the Green Brigade or fuck Celtic about moshing and lateral movement and all that kind of thing, it just goes. None of these things are affected when you're in a standing area.
Right.
It's because they're in seats and it's, oh my God, the world's going to end if they all, all that kind of stuff. So it's unfortunate, it's unfortunate it is, and I know people who have worked a hell of a lot of work into that felt a bit like they had the rug pulled from under them, just at a time when they thought it was going to be rubber stamped. But listen, it's Glasgow, it's politics, it's football. We never get anything our own way in this city, or, despite what the Huns might say with a ridiculous state aid notion and all that kind of thing. We need to work our bollocks off for everything, and what I can say, I know for a fact that Celtic are still resolutely determined to make it happen.
Well, and it's understandable that they would be. Here's an opportunity to take a lot of this pressure. Let's not kid ourselves. There's always, an element, and myself included even, that think that, Celtic is colluding with the authorities, or it's not their intent to have, a vibrant, singing, enthusiastic atmosphere at Celtic Park. They want bums in the seats. They want people to be quiet, so on and so forth. So by injecting safe standing into the equation, all of a sudden it removes that element, like Celtic is in cahoots with bringing everything down. It gives them the opportunity to say, look, we made this happen, we lobbied for it, and here it is. The flip side to that, and the unfortunate aspect of this is, that it gives sort of a rod to beat themselves with in a certain sense. It's another situation where, they came out with, a far-reaching sort of ideal, stop just short of promising it, but certainly, played it up. And therefore, and then, consequently, they didn't deliver. And it's another sort of situation for, certain elements within the fan base to say, right, see, they weren't even interested in it to begin with. It's never going to happen. This is the same old Celtic. And that's the unfortunate part of it. And like you, I do think that eventually safe standing is going to be introduced. I think it's going to be, just a fantastic lift for Scottish football, not just Celtic, but Scottish football in general. Let's not kid ourselves. Everybody who's a fan of Scottish football, and if you're a fan of Celtic, you're a fan of Scottish football. You want the domestic league to do well, to be seen well, and to grow. And anybody that's in that sort of dynamic, they want crowds to be enthusiastic about coming back and packing the stadiums and more people going and getting the energy level up. So it's the type of thing where there's a lot of enrollment across the board, but it's frustrating when a roadblock like this comes up.
Yeah, listen, I've always said it. I think some Scottish clubs would be as well just having guys standing at their gates saying, "Don't give us your money," because they are so bad. And there does always seem to be this perception that, Celtic are getting their own way with everything and all that kind of thing. And it's like, look, whether you like it or no, we are the biggest club in Scotland. We provide more money into this game than every other club in this country combined. So what do you expect Celtic to do? Of course they want to keep pushing it forward and making changes and all that kind of thing.
And also, but Paul, you don't really expect for, if Celtic introduce something like this and it's wildly successful, you don't really expect that no other club in Scotland is going to try and do their own thing with this, do you? Everybody's going to want to get in on this.
Especially if it makes money.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's as simple as that, especially if it brings people back through the turnstiles, which at the end of the day, Fergus McCann said it, Jim McLean said it, until your Dick Donald at Aberdeen used to say it, until your stadiums are full, you shouldn't worry about anything else. And you talk about, Dick Donald was the old chairman at Aberdeen, right? The chairman that got Alec Ferguson there and that kind of thing. A right old guy. A right fans, man. They used to always say, the guy's commentator says to him, your game's off the day and that kind of thing. And Aberdeen pitch was famous for always being good because it's right next to the sea, so it wouldn't be frosty and very like snow and that kind of thing. And the commentator says, "But Dick, how's the game off if your pitch is fine?" And he looked at the boy and says, "How on earth are the people supposed to get here?"
Yeah.
Christ, now I tell you, there's a breath of fresh air that
exactly.
could do with in Scottish football right now.
Sure.
So, yeah, look, I'm for anything, and I'm certainly, this would be an obvious resolution to the whole Green Brigade situation, and they would come back and create the atmosphere that we know that they're capable of doing. But as I say, let's hope as well that everybody at the stadium can create an atmosphere, because we've got a new management team in there, we're going to have some new players, we've got a new challenge, and we need everybody pulling the same way,
Yeah, absolutely. Final topic, and many people listening might think that we have foregone our customary tradition this season with a 10inaRow football show in pointing out a social media celebrity of sorts. And, maybe I had focused all of that attention on you this week, but no, we have...
What's this going to be?
We have our own topic, our own target this week, and the topic is... Paul, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Has Stephen Brandt, he's known on Twitter under the Twitter name YellowCardSCB, so you can reach out to him on Twitter and ask him what the hell that means, if you'd like. But Stephen Brandt has a presence on Twitter. He's a Celtic supporter, of sorts, and likes to mix it up a little bit. But has he entered a perpetual argument with himself? Your thoughts?
Oh dear, that's a Twitter tradition. I could name you 5 people right now who argue with themselves almost every day on Twitter, and I'll see them constantly tweeting. What's he? And it's themselves that they're actually replying to. What I would have to say, pointing out with Stephen Brandt right away, is this is a guy, the next big thing, the next .com guy in America. The man has not figured out how to use Skype. He's asked me on his show about 10 times, and every single time he's like, "Yeah, call this number." I'm like, "Stephen, I'm in Scotland. You're in America. I am not phoning that fucking number. I'll just Skype you." Well, we don't know how that. What do you mean you don't know how it works? Look at us. We are morons, and we can work out how to record the show on bloody Skype.
Too true.
Everybody uses it, and people come, "Oh, the sound quality shite." Listen to the World Football Phone-In, the biggest sports podcast in the world behind the 10inaRow show. The sound's appalling. But they get people from Central America and in the Amazon jungle and the depths of Africa. And listen to this, Stephen, they can all use Skype.
Sort it out.
For God's sake, man. Having said that, I like any American who supports Celtic, who reaches out with Celtic, and it is. He's definitely finding his way. I mean, he does shows, but I have to say, Graham, the question you asked, I don't know who the hell he's arguing with, why he's arguing with himself, because he should never ever go into a battle of wits unarmed. But the other thing about that is, Graham, is I have absolutely no idea what that Twitter handle means. Can you tell me?
I believe it has to do with his podcast that he does every Tuesday night, and focusing on issues that are pertaining to American soccer supporters.
What's the podcast called?
It's the Yellow Carded Pod.
What did it used to be called?
The Vuvuzela podcast.
See, there you go, right there. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage immediately, unless you're proclaiming to be the most annoying dick in football, because you then are choosing a title which was the most annoying thing in football 4 years ago.
No question, and it's being evidenced in this World Cup here in Brazil.
Yeah.
I think that there was a certain pop culture element, reference, what have you, from the South African World Cup, where everybody knew what a vuvuzela was, but to your point, everybody knew it for all the wrong reasons. Nobody particularly enjoyed it. It's such a breath of fresh air to be able to watch games and not have that annoying sound in the background. Yeah. It was funny.
Well, I have to say, Graham, just sorry to cut you off there, but I have to say this. You know what that's been replaced by in this World Cup? The annoying factor are these fucking idiots whose team are losing 3-4-0 and they go on the big screen and they start jumping about laughing and smiling. What is that all about?
Exactly. Well, I mean, and I think that comes down to, a topic that we touched on before where, who is it that can afford to go to the World Cup anymore? It's not going to be, your hardened football supporters or whatever. They're there to have a laugh and wear their country's colors and so on and so forth. And obviously,
the people who can afford to go, Graham, are probably the same people that can afford to go to Iceland on a £785 Celtic trip.
But they won't have to cancel their plane reservations, though.
Exactly. And, as I said on Twitter, I said, I don't know who that's aimed at, but as John Fogerty said, it ain't me.
I shouldn't laugh. I mean, if it wasn't so ridiculous, it'd be. I mean, it would be pathetic. But Stephen Brandt, like you said, an up and coming podcaster talking very passionately about American soccer issues, the national team, the MLS. He also talks about Celtic, as you mentioned. He's a Celtic supporter, and he does talk at length about Liverpool. So he does have a very hardened opinion about Suarez, one way or the other. So you can find a tweet that says Suarez should be shipped off to the MLS, and you can also find a tweet that says that he bit into a sandwich. So how is that any worse than what Suarez did? I leave it up to the listeners.
But what we'll say of that is that one of the things we touched on the show last week and this week as well was the fact that, like I said about the American fans, what's noticeable to me is a lot of American-based football fans and American-born and bred football fans, you've definitely moved on another level, and I didn't just mean in your football knowledge and that, but I've seen a lot of you arguing like fuck with each other, and I didn't mean that in a comedic way, but that takes you're not just all happy, you support football, yeah, so do I, and that kind of nicey bullshit. You actually go at each other's throats, and that's when you actually realise that you're actually getting balls deep like the rest of us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that's no easy. It's no fucking easy. I support the New York Yankees. I didn't go on Twitter about talking about them or Facebook or shows or anything like that. I didn't know anywhere near enough about it. You know what I mean? I know what I know because I've experienced it, and that's it. So the fact that he can do that is good. And Stephen Brandt, he's your poster boy.
Oh, God.
He doesn't care what they say, as long as they're talking about it.
That's very true. I think there's definitely an element of that. I mean, he's going to go, he's going to talk about Tinfoil Ted, and, if you don't know who that is, you can ask him about it. He'll tell you all about it. He's going to talk about Ann Coulter, and
oh God,
don't even
we know who that is.
Exactly. If you don't know who it is, just keep it that way. You don't want to know.
Yeah.
But this week we salute Stephen Brandt.
Oh, you can. Is that it?
That's it. Another show down.
Right. But before you start babbling like shit, let me say this, because I've got to do this for somebody called Gary Taylor, right? This is important now. So everybody listen up, because this is really a serious issue. Gary Taylor is someone, like myself in past times, who's been perplexed at the fact that Celtic have had a banner up at the Lisbon Lion stand that says a club like no other, and, it's why the seat's not getting used and they're moving to. And I said to him last, why don't you get them unemployed and that kind of thing? And it sort of was suggested and died on the vine that. So Gary wants to try and do something about this and try and sort of enable people to get to Celtic Park. And so he sent me an email saying, if you could put something out and get people, if there's other people who wanted to help him, to help people to get to Celtic Park, and he's not talking about kids like Kane or that, he's talking about actually unemployed people who just can't afford to go.
Right.
And so his name's Gary Taylor. His email address is, so everybody get your pen and your paper or your phone ready if you want any help with this project. There's a lot of great projects out there. The Invisibles are helping the homeless and doing some fantastic work with Dermo and Mark O'Brien, all that mob. Here's Gary, another member of the Celtic family, wanting to help get people to Celtic Park who couldn't normally afford to go. His email address is garytcarpentry@hotmail.com. Okay? So that's Gary T for Taylor, carpentry@hotmail.com. If you, like him, feel that Celtic could be utilising these seats to bring people that could normally not afford football matches to go to watch Celtic, Gary's willing to help. He wants to speak to like-minded people. Send him an email, and hopefully that'll happen.
Fantastic. That's a fantastic effort. And, like you said, we've talked about that on previous shows. It's also fantastic that somebody's actually listening.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, it's amazing anybody's listening to you, but that's, another story.
Well, speaking of which, you talk about Celtic, a club like no other. It's on the inside of my new away top.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm wearing.
Arrived in central headquarters yesterday.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was thoroughly screened, for contraband and, other niceties, and was cleared. So I have that, and I have a onesie for Wee Henrik Larson Wilson, which I know that you love hearing all about, as I don't want to
the onesies. Right. Oh, you mean the kid?
Yeah, me talking about my kid.
No, listen, the minute the kid's born, I'll be listening to it non-stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put a baby monitor in your room, put a baby monitor in this room, back over here. I'll listen to the kid all day. Just don't bore us before the kid's born, please.
Yeah, you set the plate for this, okay? With the complaints.
Oh, here, I'm not taking responsibility for the kid.
No, you set the plate for my communication of what's going on. So without firm guidelines on what the do's and don'ts are about communicating about your kid, first off you say, I can't accept Father's Day cards, which, fortunately I didn't get any. So, we can.
Well, you did get people wishing you Happy Father's Day, correct?
Yeah, that's a bit confusing, to be honest. I will draw the line there. But, listen, I went for the 20-week sonogram today, and they have like 3D, pictures. You can see what the kid actually looks like. I think he looked like the Notre Dame Fighting Irish mascot. He had his hands up by his face, and it's like, it's starting to really sink in.
Much that cost you then?
It's paid for by.
Did he give you the photo?
I think it was like a $15 copay.
Is it like a golden color?
Well, it's not going to be. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like amber kind of color. It's.
Look, you're ready to jump down my throat here, and I'm trying to pass on perils.
Well, I don't want you getting the impression like it's one of these pictures they take of you when you're going on a roller coaster or something.
Graham, I've got 2 kids.
All right.
I was having kids when you were playing with kids, and please don't take that the wrong way, people.
Oh, Jesus.
But so remind us again, what's the due date?
November 15th or thereabouts.
Oh, you know what? There's a premiere in Glasgow that day.
Oh, lovely.
Haha, what a great segue that was. Hey, you bastards. You think I didn't prepare for these shows?
And you'll have all the information on how people can purchase tickets and et cetera. So,
Yes. We'll get to that. Tickets on sale for July 11th. Paul Larkin Books, theassociates.com. They're going to go very quickly. So if you're not in, you're out. Most importantly, Graham, how's the lovely Elizabeth doing? How's she doing with the whole thing?
She's fine. Everything's good. I'm a mess.
She's a trooper, though, isn't she?
She is. She's absolutely wonderful. She just arrived.
Fucking married you. So.
Well, for that alone, she deserves sainthood. She just arrived home, by the way. So she can hear every word you're saying. But I'm the one that's
I'm talking her up.
I exactly. That's what I'm trying to say, though.
This is the woman that's going to have to look after 2 kids from November.
Well, she knew what she was signing up for. It's not like I fooled anybody with this.
Well, it wasn't like a honeymoon in Vegas job or anything like that, no?
He doesn't care what they say, as long as they're talking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Bear in mind, actually, it just reminded me that when we done this show last year, I think it was the last show, and when you had kind of pulled a flanker on me at the start of this show, I pulled a flanker on you last year when I got people to ask questions. Bear in mind that the most popular question was, how did you get anybody to marry you? Do you remember that?
You know what? Maybe I'll pose the question to her, and she can,
Yeah, well, I'm just, with the point I'm going to make is, I think that if I was to do that again this year, I think people will say, how on earth did you actually, somebody allow you to impregnate them?
I will have her draft a written statement, and I will read it on air. How's that?
Look,
if people are that, curious about it, we should probably tell them.
Yeah. No, listen, I would expect tweet-by-tweet analysis when she's in labour.
Thank you for your question, lady.
Yeah, Sepp Blatter's chime in. I mean, it's...
Yeah, but I would expect that to just go on and on and on because that's the kind of guy you are.
I'm going to live tweet, the entire process. Look, I'm probably not even going to be in there, because I can't deal... I'm not good with,
You've got to run a pod for you. Welcome to Beyond the Labour Pains. Boom. And then we'll go over to...
Really looking forward to it.
Beyond the Labour Pains. Now that,
And then we'll get Dr. J's and Al. In fact, Dr. J, he should be delivering the baby.
No, listen, if I need an adjustment, if my spine is out of alignment, I'll call that doctor, but he's not touching my wife. And
then we'll have Yompy doing the commentary for the sidelines, you know what I mean? Just overseeing the things like he's, because at the baseball games and stuff, you didn't just have one guy sitting there, didn't you? You've got two or three. And it's baseball, can go on for 3-4 hours. A lot of time to fill in that time.
So, so for instance, I'd be like, this is Yampy here. I'm sitting here with the midwife. Listen, how are we looking here? Is this going to happen? Could we be running into tomorrow? Could this be a November 16th birth? Well, I'm not really sure right now. Everything looks to be on track, but if anything goes out of whack, we'll let you know. All right, back to you.
Yeah, exactly. And then we cut to Dr. J, and he's like, here's Graham. He's 0 for 3 in his last thing.
He's giving me he's on my shoulders doing the karate chops,
Yeah, exactly. It's like the strikeouts and that kind of thing. And then every so often, I could come in like Joe Girardi going into the mound.
All right,
just talking to you, Graham. Like, okay, just relax. Come on, I'm going to have to take you to this now.
We're going to the righty.
Yeah, because by this time the nurses have got you in the stirrups and you're being restrained on the fucking table because you've completely flipped out. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's just sitting there, cool as you like. You're like saying, "Are we done yet?" I can just see it all. I can see it all right now.
That's exactly how it's going to happen.
Webcams, the whole lot.
You laugh all you want. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to be a mess. She's going to be cool as a fan. That's the way everything goes. That's the reason why it works.
One question I know the fans want to know is, all your fans want to know, Graham, as simple as this, is the beard still going to be intact by the birth?
I don't know. Hey, listen, it's as I detailed in last week's show, this is the beard of freedom, okay? So it has the freedom to grow or to retreat in any way it wants. So there may come a time when it's going to decide enough is enough, and we're going to have to put it down. And if and when that time comes, I'm going to listen. And I'm going to obey its wishes. It's going to be a sad day, but but think about it. You've been on the East Coast of America in mid-November. It can be absolutely freezing, with the wind and everything. A beard would come in handy.
Not so much November. I think it's still not too bad. But,
you have to start somewhere, though. If you're going to have adequate coverage for late December, January, especially, and then early February, you got to start early.
True. Now, what I'm envisaging is, I'm assuming that you're probably between now and then and probably started already building some sort of nursery.
Yes, we're in that mode right now. We're going and shopping for cribs tomorrow.
Right. Okay. Well, let's roll back to that. One question: why? At what stage do you think the baby's not going to be in your room?
Well, the kid's not going to sleep in our bed.
No, not in your bed. But he's going to sleep in your room for at least the first
on the
year
floor?
or so.
We have to have something to put the baby in. We can't have it just lay on the floor.
No. I'm not arguing against buying a crib. I'm saying there's no need to be building a nursery anytime soon. Stressing yourself out with all that kind of nonsense.
Listen, my wife delivers orders and I follow them. That's the way it works.
She delivers orders and she delivers babies.
Exactly. And what do? I run around like, what do you want from me?
That's a good question, actually. What is it you do?
Well, I certainly don't make sense.
Philosopher.
Yeah, exactly.
Raconteur.
I grow beards, therefore I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Well, I think that's Rafe's profession, isn't it?
Well, growing beards.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't know. It's been a while since I've seen a Rev selfie.
Yeah, well, I saw him in pink glasses about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if that was kind of Vegas Elvis, Fat Elvis thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, I never went through an Elton John phase, but, you know. Oh.
Anyway, let's cut this short because once again, your intrepid friend here, just after putting up with Graham for an hour and a half, has to go offwards
To your
down south to try and bring this film to your eyes. So,
Down south, eh?
yeah, that's all I can say.
Intriguing. Okay.
It could be anywhere in the south of England. Unfortunately, it's no Glastonbury, but
Well, there's certainly plenty of places to pick from so that everybody can speculate. So we'll leave it there.
Yeah. So nobody follow me to my house and spoil it, because I need to try and create the image that I'm important,
Well, I mean, nobody knows where your chateau is to begin with to know where to follow you. So,
Yeah, I'm basically in that kind of same thing that Gene Hackman's got in the enemy of the state, where it's like, doing all the signals and all that kind of thing.
Monitors everywhere.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and I have Chaz Duffy call me on there every hour just to check in, make sure I'm all right. So
speaking of beards, well,
yeah,
we wish you safe travels, and
and then I'm on holiday.
Ah, lovely.
Yes, at last.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
No. Guinness and kids, i.e. my 2 sons, is what it will be.
Well, do enjoy your time, and
I will.
We will.
No, I won't. I will. I mean, I'm joking. Of course I will. I'm can't wait. I very, very rarely get the chance to be, with my 2 sons at the same time for any length of time. I'm going to be with them for a week, so I can't wait. I'm going to be with them from next Tuesday to the following Tuesday. So it's going to be fantastic.
Magic. Well, enjoy it, and we'll catch up with you when you get back.
Okay.
Lovely. And for me, I'm not going to go on holiday. It's we're going into the Independence Day season here in America, so I'm going to be lighting off fireworks, drinking beer, and cooking barbecues. And I'll make
just like any other weekend. Then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So for Paul Larkin...
Oh, wait a minute. You've got a special guest coming, haven't you?
Ah, yeah. I was going to delay announcement of this, but I guess we can share now.
Need to know.
Yeah, I do have a special guest, an aforementioned guest who's been talked about in previous shows. The great Seamus Cummins is coming to spend some time in the nation's capital. So looking forward to that as well. Hopefully he can sing us some songs, and we'll build a bonfire, and I'll have the kids down. It's going to be magic.
Fantastic. Well, give him all my love.
Absolutely will do.
We shall, if the good Lord spares us, we'll be here for number 7 in about 2 weeks.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, safe journeys, as I mentioned, and thank you once again for joining us. And thank you to the listeners for joining us and sitting through this once again. My name is Graham Wilson, and for Paul Larkin, we'll say hail, hail.
Sayonara.
And sayonara. Keep the faith. We'll talk to you soon.
You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old past said. Boy, you got a friend in me. Yeah, you got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got trouble, and I got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. We stick together, see it through, 'cause you got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. Some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, big and stronger too, maybe, but none of them will ever love you the way I do. It's me and you. boy. And as the years go by, a friendship will never die. You're gonna see it's our destiny. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me.